Good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to share this space with you. My name is Nixon Santiago Morales Diaz, and today we're going to delve into a deep and critical reflection on pedagogy, not as a standardized technique, but as a living, dynamic, and complex process. The style is a special direct at you. Well, understand that education is not about repeating content, but about transforming lives, even through the invisible and the uncertain. Okay, the introduction. Traditionality pedagogy has been understood as the set of teaching methods. However, from a more complex perspective, pedagogy cannot be separated from the context, culture, history, or subjective of the teacher and the students. In this sense, teaching is not just about transferring knowledge, it is about managing meanings, connections, and process of knowledge. With this in mind, let's think, for example, of a rural classroom and an urban classroom. While the curriculum is the same, the way in which the educational process is experienced is radically different. This is where pedagogy ceases to be a technique and becomes a reflective, ethical, and of course pedagogical practice. As Albert Huber says, the object of teaching actually is to enable it to succeed with you a teacher. Okay, as educators, we are called to interpret realities, to make constant decisions about what to teach, how to teach it, when to intervene, and when to remain silent. This ability to navigate uncertainty is what makes pedagogy a truly complex field. The role of the teacher in complex pedagogy. Okay, teachers are no longer mere transmitters of information. They are cultural mediators, facilitators of learning process, and often emotional supporting figures. In my experience as a teacher in training, I have seen that those who most impact their students are not those who master the subject matter, but those who manage to intertwine knowledge, emotions, and context. Therefore, we must ask ourselves, are we training teachers to teach as well or to ask good questions? To repeat models of to transform reality from their classroom? Complex pedagogy requires comprehension teacher training, which includes epistemology, ethics, interculturality, critical thinking, and affective capacities. If we were I'm sorry. If we are clear about this, our pedagogical leadership will be efficient and coherent. Remembering the following. Education helps a person learn to be what they are capable of being, passionate. And education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. Likewise, students with a complex pedagogy must move away from a punitive and standardizing logic and become a dialogic process that makes learning cognitive, emotional, and social visible over time. Narrative digital portfolios, rubrics constructed with students, and space for peer feedbacks foster a culture of evidence and continuous improvements. And it is not just about measuring results, but about supporting trajectories, identifying unique strengths, recognizing invisibles, advance in self-efficacy, and offering personality guidance instead empowers each learning to set viable and meaningful goals. When assessment becomes a conversation, error says to be a stigma becomes a valuable source for pedagogical innovation. Current and future challenge of pedagogy. Okay, without a doubt, today we face multiple challenges, such as emerging technologies, change in family structures, migration, violence, information overload, and many more, and yet we still expect school to be treated with cyber. But how does pedagogy respond to this challenge? Will it those from a place of complexity? Science is recognizing that there is no single solution, but rather multiple possibilities. We need to revolve pedagogy dialogue, through through recognition of the other, through listening, and through opponents to difference. Education cannot continues to be understood as straight line, but rather as a web of relationships, times, emotions, and knowledge. As Edgar Morin would say, we cannot teach without considering life, without considering context, without considering uncertainty. Likewise, it is essential to recognize that pedagogical work cannot be limited to the classroom or the prescribed curriculum. It must be articulated with the territories, families, and popular knowledge. When the school connects with the community, with our through research into the neighborhood memory, incorporating community service projects or engaging in dialogue with local leaders. Learning takes on a city character that allows children and adolescents to critically interpret their own context and act upon it. From this perspective, teaching becomes a practice of cultural mediation. The teacher says to be a simple transformer of content and becomes a weaver of network that contains disciplines, generations, and experience, fostering digital media and emotional literacy with the same seriously as linguistic or numeracy. In this way, the diversity of voice in the classroom ceases to be an obstacle and becomes the primary out for the collective construction of knowledge. At the same time, if we assume complexity as guiding the principle, we must embrace understanding and error as formative opportunities. Educational environment should foster space where experimentation and reflection on one's own practice are commonplace. Learning labs, interdisciplinary STEAM projects, Socratic dialogue and circles, and formative assessments, methodologies that prioritize feedback over training. These types of experience cultivate metaconnection, resilience, and personal agency. Essential keys for navigation are constantly changing and changing a world. At the same time, they invite us to retain the temporal architecture of the school fewer 50 minus class and more flexible itineraries that combine research, creative production, and social action. Only in this way can education foster individuals capable of individual complexity with ethical responsibility, ecological, about ecological sensibility, and a permanent disposition for lifelong learning. Okay, question from the public. Three questions. Okay. To close, I want to invite you to think of yourselves as educators in your daily lives. We all teach and learn sometimes without realizing it, and if pedagogy is complex, it's because life is too. Next, I will answer three questions posed by you, my audience, in this space. First question: what is the difference between educational and pedagogy? Okay, it's an excellent question. Education is the broad process of human development through life. Pedagogy, on the other hand, is the critical reflection on how this education process occurs. It is the knowledge that analyzes, questions, and transforms the ways in which we educate. Therefore, every educational act has pedagogical concept behind it, even if we are not always aware of it. I hope my answer has been helpful. Now let's move on to next question. How is pedagogy applied in a classroom with limited resources? Okay, let's keep in mind that complex pedagogy does depend exclusively of material resource, but rather of the teacher's critical and flexible approach. It involves recognizing the context, using available resources creatively, and above all construction meaning with students. Sometimes a depth conversation, a well-posed question, or a reflective exercise is worth more time under the digital device. That is technical pedagogy. Let's move on to the third and final question. What is the biggest mistake teachers make with taking from traditional perspective? One of the most common mistakes is thinking that all students learn the same and that teaching is time to explain it. From a complex perspective, each student is unique with a different history, emotions, ways of learning, and barriers. Identifying this decay and ignoring each of these aspects reduce education to empty instruction. Okay. The challenge is to teach from empathy, listening, and adaptability, especially the latter. Okay, final conclusion. This space has been excellent. Thank you for very much your attention. I hope this talk has been very revealing and informative and above all. It has given you the desire to continue exploring pedagogy as an act of creation and transformation. See you soon.